It's always fun going to a new place for afternoon tea. And although I have heard of La Parisienne French Bistro in Frisco, I've never been. So ATF, my afternoon tea friend who wishes to remain anonymous, is joining me there for their fall afternoon tea service. I'm really looking forward to it. La Parisienne French Bistro is in Frisco, Texas, about a half-hour drive north of Dallas. Located in what's known as the Star District, the area offers more than 35 restaurants, shops, and specialty services, and is the world headquarters and practice facility to the Dallas Cowboys. La Parisienne boasts of not only being an authentic French restaurant, but also as a place for group events like birthday parties, showers, etc. Walking in, the setting looks to be the perfect place for that, and it appeared the colorful floral surroundings had already been host to a few on the day we were there. Our table was preset with lovely china, and the one thing I always look for, a tea strainer, so I knew tea would be loose leaf. They offer a very nice selection of teas. I ordered Earl Grey, always my favorite, and ATF got the African Solstice, a caffeine-free rooibos tea with a hint of vanilla and berry. Plenty of sugar cubes and whole milk were on hand to add. We ordered the classic traditional afternoon tea for two. There's also a vegetarian tea and a children's tea offered. The generous Savory's course included 5 sandwiches and canapes, neatly prepared. The middle tier contained both plain and cinnamon apple scones, and the final tier held an array of tempting pastries. We couldn't wait to dig in. First was the apple thyme turkey sandwich. It also tasted like it had a cranberry spread. It was of good size and very tasty. Unfortunately, the bread was stale, as if it had been sitting out an hour before serving. Next was a fig and brie canapé on toasted sourdough bread. The sprout decoration made it a little awkward to eat, but it was very tasty. I think we both liked that quite a bit. Next was a profiterole filled with cranberry pecan goat cheese. I liked this the least, as the cheese didn't seem to have much flavor. Up next, a ham and cheese finger sandwich. The ratio of filling to bread was perfect on all of these, but unfortunately, again, the bread was stale, taking away from the experience. Finally, the prettiest savory on the plate was the cucumber and mint cream cheese on bread. Again, stale bread, but the flavor of the cucumber and mint spread was very nice. Moving up the tower, the plain scones were bite-sized and could have spent another minute in the oven to brown the tops. They did seem fresh-baked, though, and broke apart perfectly. The cinnamon apple scones were a good size, baked a little longer, but a little more crumbly. Breaking them apart was a bit of a challenge for ATF and I. But they were very tasty.
Not quite. Oh my.
Both the menu and our server told us we had clotted cream and strawberry preserves to go on the scones, but I highly doubt that. The preserves were good, but a little runny, and the clotted cream just was not clotted cream. It was a thickened, sweetened whipped cream, and it was good, just not clotted cream. We almost didn't get to try it, though, because we didn't have knives or spreaders. We had to ask for them. Finally, it was time for the beautiful desserts, which all looked so inviting. Little 2-layer carrot cakes with a cream cheese frosting started us off.
It's really pretty.
They were very good and evoked the perfect sense of fall or autumn. Then we picked the chocolate cream puffs. They appeared to be dusted with edible gold glitter, which made them look so festive and pretty. On the inside, rather than a chocolate cream, was a vanilla or perhaps hazelnut, which was also very nice. Finally, pumpkin cheesecake rounded out the trio of pastries. Also dusted with edible glitter, it sparkled so pretty. But we learned after the first bite, which was excellent, it would be easier to eat with a fork. Only ATF didn't have one. I did, but hers was missing. Everything had been finger food up to that point, so she hadn't noticed. As it was the very last item to eat, she ended up eating her cheesecake with her teaspoon. So, what do we think about that? Well, breaking it down element by element, first, the atmosphere. It's the kind of place that when you walk in the door, it makes you smile. I mean, everything was eye-catching and beautifully decorated. The fall colors were so pretty, and just the space in general is uplifting. I have to say, though, it surprised me at how loud it is there. The sound just bounces off all the hard surfaces, and although ATF and I were seated at a small table, we had to keep our voices raised all the time to hear each other. I mean, I'm doing this portion of the video many hours after we finished because my voice was so raspy and thin afterward from yelling. The place setting was lovely, and there was a good variety of loose-leaf tea to choose from. Milk and sugar were readily available. The tea was good, but unfortunately, once it came, was not hot. It was warm-ish, but almost tepid. And of course, once you add cold milk to that, it really cools down. It subtracted from the meal enough that when the manager came over to kindly check on us, and by the way, service was wonderful, very attentive. We were checked on many times. But when he asked how we were doing, we mentioned how cool the tea was, and he immediately whisked away both pots and filled them with hot water. He even replaced our teacups that were sitting with cold tea in them. We thought that was very nice and, frankly, appropriate. Now, the food. As mentioned, just about all the savories were really tasty. The main drawback was the bread. It just wasn't fresh. The dry texture was as if it had been sitting out for an hour or more. Now, I've mentioned here on previous videos, when making sandwiches ahead of time, you always cover them with a damp towel, plastic wrap, something to make sure the bread doesn't go stale. Kitchen staff should know that. The sandwich flavor combinations, 10 out of 10, easily. But the stale bread cuts that score in half. Now to the scones. They were really pretty good. It was only when we went to spread on the cream and jam that we noticed neither of us had been given a knife for spreading. We put the cream and jam on the sides of our plates, as you do, but then had no way to get it onto our scones. Maybe they expect people to dip from the communal dishes directly onto their scones, but you don't do that. And again, if it's not real clotted cream, please don't call it that. If you can't make it or you don't have access to it, I get it. It's harder to come by here in the States, but acknowledge that. It's a bit like claiming to have Coca-Cola listed on the menu, but serving Dr. Pepper instead. They're both brown carbonated drinks, but they are not the same. Finally, the pastries. All good. Texture, flavor, size, everything was really pretty and really good. I have very little to question there. We were surprised the chocolate cream puff wasn't a little more chocolatey, but it was still very good. The only issue there was the last dessert we had, the pumpkin cheesecake. It was heavy to hold and it really needed instead to be eaten with a fork. But ATF wasn't given one. Now, I have said before how much afternoon tea foods should be finger foods, but just in case you need a fork, it's good to supply one. I think it was just an oversight, but coupled with not having knives either, kind of felt like a thing. Overall, out of 5 stars, I would probably give La Parisienne French Bistro 3.5. The stale bread and lukewarm tea really took away from the whole experience. And the noise, which you can't do a thing about unless you serve afternoon tea in a separate, quieter space. But frankly, if I owned a restaurant, I would consider doing that because afternoon tea needs a quieter setting. I'll put the details in the description box, but know that reservations are required. I made ours online and had to put down a deposit. A 20% gratuity is automatically added to the bill, but they earned it, frankly. They were so attentive, and we really appreciated that. By the way, ATF and I had their fall tea. They don't start offering their holiday tea until December 1st, but they are accepting reservations now, so I advise you call soon if you want to do that. Bookings for such things usually go really fast. And there you have it, traditional afternoon tea at La Parisienne French Bistro in Frisco. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button, give it a thumbs up, and consider subscribing for more afternoon tea videos. Until next time, bye-bye.